South Africa has the deepest and most persistent unemployment crisis in the world. This is primarily due to low economic growth. This is according to the latest Centre for Development and Enterprise, or CDE, report. It's entitled 10 Million and Rising: What it would take to address South Africa's job bloodbath. Well, to discuss this, we're joined in studio by Bernstein, CDE's Executive Director. Anne, good to see you. Welcome.
Thank you.
Quite dramatic, I must say. I mean, when you look at all of this, saying that, we are consistently for the past 40 years, the economy has not grown enough to sustain jobs. What's happening here?
Well, to put it very simply, you could say that under apartheid, we excluded the majority of people from the economy and economic opportunity. And since 2008, state capture, widespread corruption, antagonism to business, and the near sort of fatal collapse of our governance has got us into this situation. But it's not just low growth. Even if we were to get faster growth, which we desperately need, we need to change our labor market. So our labor market favors skilled employment and capital-intensive industry. And yet we have an abundance of unskilled labor. And that's partly why unemployment is 10.3 million and rising. And this is a catastrophe for the individuals concerned, their families, their communities, but for the country as well. And we're saying we have to introduce a new approach. Job summits, special initiatives, projects, all these things we've been doing, NEDLAC negotiations, they're not working. We have to introduce serious reforms in order to get faster growth and in order to get more in labor-intensive growth.
Yeah. I mean, are we perhaps, we obviously we don't have the right skills, because last year and the year before, all we heard, and it was almost like a mandate, that every time anybody in government opened their mouth, they would go, the 4IR, the fourth industrial revolution, the fourth industrial revolution, and yet, are we upskilling the population here in South Africa to step up to this challenge and actually move forward? Because I am hearing just stories of people that are losing their jobs and not getting jobs because they don't have the right skills.
Look, there are two issues. The one is that South Africa has failed to build a skilled workforce for many generations now, and under democratic South Africa we've not done much better, if at all. And we need to change that. We need to reform basic education. We come last in many of the international tests on maths and literacy, and that's just not good enough. But we're not taking this seriously enough. On the other hand, there are many developing countries which have equally bad skills as South Africa, and they're doing much better than us. So the unusual thing about this country is that we have deliberately chosen to go for a high-skilled, sort of high-wage growth path, and this has failed. We have to introduce labor reform so that our manufacturing and many other sectors, and sectors you and I don't know about, are going to employ more and more people. We should stop talking so much about the fourth industrial revolution, which the Deputy President can't define and many other people can't define, and we should worry about making sure that South African learners at schools can read and write and count. That's much more important.
It's quite interesting, because you look at our matric pass rate and we all jump up and down praising the fact that, our matric pass rate is increasing. I think we had about 81% matric pass rate this year. And yet, when we look at the data of the youth, and predominantly the youth, they are the ones that are not getting the jobs.
Well, you should ignore the matric pass rate hullabaloo.
Exactly.
It's irrelevant to how South Africa is doing. So you have to look at, how do we do on international tests? That's what really matters. How do we compare? And we compare very badly to other countries that are much poorer than us. We spend a lot of money on basic education. We don't get value for money. And the problem is, we have lots and lots, millions of young people coming out of our schools, badly educated, through no fault of their own. Often they come from families where nobody works, and we have deliberately chosen to discourage unskilled employment. We make it harder for employers to employ people who've never worked before, because it's expensive and costly because of the hiring and firing relationship. Our bargaining structures where wages are negotiated are often extended to people who are not part of that, to firms that are not part of that negotiation. So there are lots of examples of how we have to change the labour market. And we're saying this crisis of unemployment is really serious. We need to take it much more seriously. We are not making progress, and we need to grapple with the hard reforms that are required. We understand this is politically challenging. We're not calling for holus bolus reform of the labour market. We've carefully calibrated what needs to be done to make this economy more labour intensive, and the political leaders now need to get much more serious. We have to change. We need a serious strategy of reform that includes changing the conversation in the country about how we are different from other developing countries and how we change so that we can make progress, which is possible.
Finally, and very quickly, what is that one thing that you would say? What would you recommend to turn the situation around?
We should stop avoiding reform. We should stop tweaking and fiddling. We should deal with the central issues and adopt a reform strategy that requires serious consideration of how you build allies around the reforms that are absolutely essential, and how we communicate incremental progress and build a majority in this country behind the changes we have to make to get faster growth and much more labour-intensive economy and growth.
All right, and thanks so much for talking to us here on the program. Anne Bernstein is the Executive Director of the Centre for Development and Enterprise, or CDE. Their latest report on the economy and unemployment crisis indicates that skills shortages and poor policies are to blame for the country's low economic growth. Quick break. Public